Some with scrolling planes, mutable songs, and 64-bit comfort. Whenever I play certain Sega Genesis games, there's this feeling everything and all might pop out if I look at my screen funny or get too inventive with my Genesis controller. Have you had that feeling with the Sega Genesis? The Sega 32X console makes gaming more comfortable, and the Atari Jaguar makes gaming even more comfortable after that. Raiden is a screen-scrolling shooter with fancy planes and odd UFOs and conflicting paths with stated intensity and expansive points for your pleasure of seeing really high scores. Battles between my plane and the soaring enemies position themselves after the immensity of provokement, even if your personality is tagged with hurricane-stirring action about my long play. Sharp as a razor, cool as ice, tremendous feat. This shooting game in my computer text can seem too good to be true with the viewing of YouTube Red. What happens is the violence or immensity or intensity or dramatic output of plane smashing action and ammo depletion goes hand in hand with the passing moments where the Atari Jaguar rests on my table as a sentinel, something between paste gray and metal gray, or vice versa. Raiden being the arcade shooter with its demanding colors of roars, privilege, and enthusiastic sanity. Do some of my words catch your eye? Nothing goes unspoken yet. Futures await us. They're filled with sharp edges along the 64-bit universe, with such ease of presentation and slight radio frequency waves beyond Atari's past enemies before Jaguar's lower reign of madness. Maybe I'm touching on the console and Raiden all at once, my friends. For that matter, sometimes less is more in terms of attempted inventions of programming. Is Superman 64 all it's cracked up to be? Just bare 3D? N64 game, not Jaguar. Besides, N64 games at times are more comfortable when we go with 3D. That's less demanding and more likely to comfort gamers who sit in futuristic nature on their couch, popcorn, and silly magazines. Although fashion of gaming is an improper logic, I'm left with a better guess of perception and flawed opinions. Ships really expand outward and raided to the point of oblivion, huh? Explosion after monstrosity meet my drums until my heart beats as lured into their sound waves of magnificence. But whenever I touch the dial pad to mute a song for a while, or even alter the expanding musical notation rounds, we're left high and dry upon the varietal airs of which little universes add to Raiden's 64-bit universe, with furnishing touches out of an excellent programming job on Atari's part. For dooming roll and transient expressions, one long paragraph should be enough for a video game review, and a blog post with relatively new features of tackling video game input as opposed to unconfirmed commotions. Often we're at odds with the video game literature because we haven't conceived another person's senses to the point of disinterest every day, rather than our obvious bias. Jaguars run through fields somewhere. Can't we feel our secrets of aggression anymore? Politics ought to play a key role in video game criticism more often if we're to be pinpointing over intense drama among young and their old. For if all conflict of purpose of favor is to come to legal perception, determination by knowing superiors or masters shall act as a typical reply to freedom, either the search for understanding or fighter's boredom will simply. I don't play Raiden just because I'm bored, and perhaps boredom is a concern against sensual understanding for which more ships might pop up with my button presses of the Jaguar. Look, I'm probably as sensitive as you are about complete cluelessness and immensity on TV, or if you're sucking all fancy light out of the screen with the intent of not being so important and concerned, Raiden should serve as a reminder of why arcade machines get the reputation only deserved on nice budgets and morality. People need to be responsible for their actions. When a button on my Jaguar controller is pressed into a world where there might be imaginary politics just from the game's execution of style and performance in flying colors, yet from getting to my hot television and serving up my position on monstrosity and catastrophe in the honor of good and evil. Imagination out of the box is actually another clue or another rumor to the enormous masses around the planet in real time. True, a box for the game has been opened. Graphics and design ought to be visuals of recognition to which American parties may presume lawful feedback over risky possibilities, and Americans themselves can render any sort of problem to their appropriations when political justice serves as much to the ethics to the whereabouts of us. Raiden is exciting, but is also important for dispute, since enemies aren't always going to poke their heads out of the 64-bit water strictly due to boring moments, my friends. For politics and understanding are both the same system of ammo depletion and determined progress along the Jaguar's lines of effort through all the mistaken hardcore illusion. Young people might have to know that people don't get along somehow in this world. So through magic and through illusions, parents might try coinciding with hard times upon the earth only to in turn remain with the same knowledge and external deceptions of reality as its really working hands. Feel my hands, they're tough and made of biological tools built to last for perhaps more than half a century more. My childhood of Terminator and Demolition Man, not to mention the young to meet, where I might hear our words about Earth, but don't know my past yet, of watching all sorts of intense cinema and artistic recreations of ideologies in physical form. Raiden won't be played by a lot of the young, although they might hear adults mention some of the incredible surroundings on the Jaguar's program interface. From familial exposure to wit, recommendations, and unthinkable wit, such kids will probably eventually sense the wrongs and doables in their bubbles and shouldn't be too popped out when exposing the immense mess of initial progress towards politics and comprehension, simply as we have vanquished effects to the point of minimal decisions and wit from all involved occasions with this shooter. Raiden implies morality, yet doesn't magnify it with very explicit storylines, and so maybe future programmers can result with a new Raiden program with more sensual input and history we can see. This Jaguar game might not have much in the way of profile or storylines other than editable lives and visionary implications, but at least it's a milestone for 64-bit gaming, of which everything in gameplay is comfortable, a bit sensual, and wildly amusing, almost encouraging many of the best Nintendo pilots, as George Carlin calls them, to further open up the space between odds and ends despite magnificence and intensity for unguided steps and natural artificial beauty on TV. Like how you may see in this video here. That's my voice acting. Enjoy my voice acting and take care. And consider this game for the entire Jaguar. God bless.